What if the ghost stories you heard as a child weren't just stories? What if the knocks on your window at midnight were real? For years, these 5 chilling encounters have remained a mystery, each tale a spine-tingling reminder that sometimes the things that go bump in the night are more than just our imagination. From an old haunted house in Rosedale to a cornfield that hides more than just crops, these stories will make you question the line between reality and the supernatural. Join us as we dive deep into these haunting echoes of childhood and discover why some mysteries are better left unsolved. Hit subscribe, turn off the lights, and prepare to be haunted. The house in Rosedale that we lived in until I was 13 was fully haunted, like there was no way to even deny it. It was built in the late 1800s, and during the Second World War it became a rooming house for women whose husbands had gone to war, and their children. That might be why we felt like our ghosts were maybe a mother and her child, because there was a maternal presence and a more playful kid-like energy too. There were things that happened almost every day, like the front door opening and closing, followed by the sound of someone running up the stairs. You'd get up from the living room to see who was home, and of course there was no one there. You'd often hear someone bouncing a ball up and down on the 3rd floor. In fact, I can remember lying in bed one day when I was homesick from school and just getting annoyed by this kid making a noise above my head. The room above me, where the noise was coming from, was also my mom's office, and she said she often heard the keys on her keyboard going impossibly fast, like a little kid playing around. Of course, when she went up to check, there was no one there, and the computer was off. The female ghost was always lovely and protective toward my mom and me, but she hated men. One time, my parents got into an argument, and my dad was relegated to the spare room. That room had a screen porch that opened off it, and in the middle of night, the door to the porch swung open. There was wind everywhere, and the sheets were ripped off the bed and flung across the room. My dad woke up petrified and ran back to my parents' room. My mom says she's never seen him so scared. She likes to think that it was the ghost who'd seen them having this big fight and decided he needed to be dealt with. That porch room, by the way, was also my playroom, and I can definitely remember feeling sometimes like there was someone else in there with me, but never in a scary, foreboding way. It was almost comforting. I always felt like we were just living alongside the echoes of someone else living their life, and somehow we happened to overlap. When I was 18, I was really into scary movies. I just had an urge to see or experience something scary. It was during this summer that I started researching haunted sites I could visit. Then one caught my attention: Sweet Hollow Road in Long Island. There are a bunch of popular urban legends linked to the site, and all of them have to do with a creepy underpass bridge. A few of the stories speak about the violent deaths of children. One day I told my cousin and brother, who were also ghost story fanatics, that we should visit Sweet Hollows. My cousin had just gotten his license, and my mom insisted on tagging along. When we finally got to the underpass, we found nothing. We didn't see anything out of the ordinary. The only scary thing we experienced at the site was that, due to the thin zigzag-like road, we almost crashed into a tree. We thought the trip was a waste. But then something strange happened. The next morning, my mom swore that during the night she felt like someone or something was watching her from under her bed. On the other hand, the rest of us had dreamt of a small boy with black hair. He was pale, and none of us could remember his face. Until this day, we still believe that whoever we saw had to be one of the many children who had died at that bridge. When I was 17, I was hanging out with 2 friends, and they wanted to smoke weed in the woods. I didn't feel like it, so I drove them and waited in the car. After a while, I was getting bored and decided to meet them, but there were 4 paths going off in different directions, so I just took the biggest one. After walking for a few minutes in the pitch-black forest, this was before flashlights on phones, I come across this dip in the trail, and on the other side was a bench lightly visible due to the moonlight. Sitting on the bench was a man and another standing before him, but I could only make out silhouettes. Being sure these were my friends, I yelled at them before walking over. If you ever walk the woods at night, it's just an uneasy feeling all around, so I was cautious to begin with. Well, it turns out, just after yelling out to my friends, both silhouettes turned towards me. Not a word, not a sound. The guy sitting down starts sprinting full fucking speed towards me in complete silence. I got the absolute fuck out of there, sprinting the other way and tripping over shit because I couldn't see anything. I finally got out and locked myself in my car, but I was really worried for my friends. Maybe a minute later I saw them both coming out of a completely different path. They also confirmed they never saw me or anyone else. My heart still sinks just thinking about that dude sprinting in silence. What the fuck was that shit? I was around 10 years old, sitting in the noisy school dining hall, the familiar clamor of lunchtime surrounding me. The day had started normally, but my mind was preoccupied. My mom had mentioned that she might take me to the doctor that afternoon for my recurring eye issue. She couldn't drive, so I assumed she'd figure something out. Halfway through lunch, the office woman approached me. Her expression was neutral, but her words sent a jolt through me. "There's a taxi waiting outside for you. You need to go." My heart raced. Mum must have booked it. She was always so practical. Quickly I cleared my tray and grabbed my bag. As I was about to leave, I realized I'd forgotten my jacket in the classroom. It was my favorite, and I couldn't bear to leave it behind. I dashed off to retrieve it, my shoes squeaking against the polished floors. When I returned, the office woman's stern gaze met mine. "You're too late. The taxi's gone." Panic surged through me. I imagined my mum's disappointment, her frustration at missing the doctor's appointment. I trudged back to class, my heart heavy with dread, every minute ticking by like an eternity. The school day finally ended. I dragged myself to the gates, anxiety knotting in my stomach. There she was, my mum, her face lighting up when she saw me. But I couldn't hold it in any longer. Tears streamed down my face as I ran to her, babbling apologies about missing the taxi. Her confusion was evident. "What taxi? I didn't order a taxi." I froze. But the office woman said there was one, and it was for me. She shook her head, her brow furrowed. "I have no idea what you're talking about." A chill ran down my spine. If Mum hadn't ordered the taxi, who had? Who was that driver? And what were they planning to do with me? The unanswered questions gnawed at us both. Mum was rattled, immediately deciding to cancel the doctor's appointment. The unease lingered long after we left the school. The next day, Mum called the school. The office woman confirmed she had received a call, supposedly from my mum, instructing her to send me out to the taxi. But the number was unknown, and the details were vague. No one could identify the driver or the caller. When I was 12, every night for close to 2 months, someone would knock on my bedroom window. It was usually after 11 p.m. and before 2 a.m., and at the beginning would wake me from a dead sleep. A few times I even heard the knocking in my dreams and then woke up and the knocking was still happening. I lived in a ranch in a newish neighborhood, so there weren't any mature trees whose branches could be hitting the house. And I was certain of the distinct sound of knuckles on glass. I had a small nightlight, but no nightstand lamp, so I would have had to get out of bed and go to the other side of the room to flip the switch to turn on the lights. I had many blinds that covered the windows, but the thought of being illuminated with someone outside terrified me, especially because my bedroom window faced the backyard, which faced a giant cornfield. Everything outside at night was pitch black, unless the moon was close to full. After a week or so of the knocking, I asked my younger sister if she was doing it. She was 7 at the time, and me, even asking about it, scared her, so she tattled on me to my parents. They confronted me, saying I was telling stories, and I swore up and down I wasn't. The knocking kept happening for weeks and weeks, and my behavior changed because I was always scared and never sleeping. A teacher pulled me aside to inquire about my day's state and not paying attention in class, and I told her about the window knocking. She took me to the principal's office, and he called my mom, and they had a meeting behind closed doors that my mom would not tell me about. My mom slept on the trundle bed that night in my room to see if I was telling the truth. I woke up around 1:30 a.m. to the knocking on my window and reached down to wake up my mom, and she wasn't there. I was terrified, stiff, and laid there until the knocking stopped, maybe 30 seconds, and then slid to the floor and Army crawled down the hall and into the living room. My parents were asleep on the couch with the TV on. Out of probably fear, frustration, and disappointment, I started crying, which startled my parents awake. My dad got angry and said something like, "Fine, then tomorrow me and you and my shotgun will wait outside." The next night I'd hoped he'd forgotten about that promise, but nope, we bundled up in all black and camo and wedged ourselves between the back deck and the house, with a clear view of both the cornfield and my bedroom window. A partial moon was up in clear skies, so you could make out the outline of the landscape and house. I stargazed for a bit but fell asleep pretty quickly, and my dad woke me up around 4 a.m. to take me back inside, saying all he saw were some deer in the cornfield and maybe I'd been hearing bucks fighting. Then he went to bed. Not more than 5 minutes later, I heard a loud bang, 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 bang. It hit so hard it rattled the blinds on the window. I almost peed myself. I was so scared and laid awake for the rest of the night with my heart pounding so hard I thought I was going to explode. The knocking never returned after that, and my parents maintain to this day it was all in my head. Some stories fade with time, but the echoes of these childhood hauntings remain etched in our memories. If you enjoyed these stories, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Ghostly Gazette for more tales that will keep you up at night. Stay curious, stay brave, and always keep an eye out for the unexplained. Until next time, keep your lights on and your mind open.